You're listening to The Startup Artist, where acclaimed filmmaker Kurt John Mungle shows you how to hack your psychology, get connected, and finally make money with your art.
All right, I'm here with Bern Euler of the Canadian Film Festival. He's the founder and
executive director.
Executive director. So let's talk about what are some mistakes that filmmakers make when they submit to festivals?
Right into the negativity? I'm okay with that, I guess. Not many, I'll tell you the truth, because the quality of our submissions is quite high. But when they're not, the number one thing that me and my co-programmer, Ashley Rains, the number one thing that we see is that they've rushed to camera and haven't especially taken time with their script. I mean, you have to take your time with your script. You have to give it to not your mom or your sister or.
So it's a story problem? A pacing problem?
Well, some of the most common ones we see is they rush to camera, especially younger filmmakers, want to start filming right away and don't have that story done. So the biggest story structure-wise problems we see is no third act. That is a note that appears so many times.
That's something that Jess complains about plenty. Jess is the artistic director of Indie Film TO, sitting behind the camera, and he talks about how they're building up as if they're going to build up to something great, and then it's never resolved or it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, or it's not, or it's too easy of an ending, or it's like they just took 4 months to write Act 1 and 2, and then finished Act 3 in a day. And
yeah, I find that filmmakers are technically proficient. Their cinematography is great, and their lighting is fine. Well, cinematography and lighting are similar, but their story is not there.
So many times.
And the acting is not there.
And you can't. What's that? And I hope I don't screw up this. It's you can make a bad movie with a good script or a bad script, but you can only make a good movie with a good script. I messed that up. You can only make a good movie with a good script, but you can't rush that. And if you do, it's so obvious, because when we're going through a few hundred submissions, and what happens is we have this many screens to show up, right? But then we end up with this many movies that we want to screen. So
what's that percentage look like? How much percentage? So you get let's say you get 10,000 submissions or 1,000 submissions. How many of those submissions are generally of quality enough for you to consider?
It depends. Every year is different, obviously, but it's generally we have twice as many movies that are worthy of screening than we can screen.
How many films do you screen?
We have 9 features. This year we did 9 features and 30 shorts. So we have 2 shorts screenings. We also show a Toronto-made short before every feature that we show.
Is it national, or is it just in Toronto?
No, we show shorts and features from across the country.
What I mean is Canadian Film Fest simultaneously screened in Alberta and Vancouver?
Oh, no, we just go on Toronto right now, but we do have some plans brewing right now that maybe next year there will be a CFF in a different city, in a different country, actually.
How much work goes into this festival? Like, what do your days look like? And your team, and how many people are on your team, and what do they do, and how often do they do it?
Okay, it's like we have the month after the festival. There's not that much to do, right? But once we start accepting submissions, I'll tell you, it's about 6 months of part-time work, 6 months of full-time work, and then, but the couple of months leading up to it, it's more than full-time. It's like
you're in crunch mode.
I do not every single free moment I have is devoted to the festival, because I'm the head programmer and the director of the festival. So not only am I watching, I watch every single submission. Every single submission that we get is watched in its entirety by me and by my co-programmer. Sometimes
how many programmers do you have? 2?
Well, the way we do it is we have shorts and we have features, and they're all. Because people ask me a lot, what are you looking for? We are just looking for great stories well told. And that means as long as it's not experimental, we want to see it, because we want to see stories. We want to see stories. So that might mean a sci-fi or a drama or a comedy or a documentary or whatever, as long as there's a good story.
Okay.
And we make a mix of all of that. So there's no program like a comedy program or
I meant to say, how many programmers do you have?
Oh, programmers.
Yeah.
It's me and Ashley.
Okay.
So we have 2 programmers.
And just so people are aware, what's the difference between a programmer and a judge?
Well, the programmers decide on what movies are going to play, and then we get judges. We always have 3 judges that are established industry filmmakers or distributors or producers or actors, and they judge on what's going to be best feature or best short or win the William F. White Indie Award or the Retake Set Design Award and that. So
for best ofs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
And it's primarily you and Ashley working on Canadian Film Fest, or is it a team of other people?
It is a team. Ashley and I take care of the programming. And then I've got a great board of directors. I've got my director of operations, Joy Mabon, make sure it runs smoothly and like a business, which is one of my failings, but that's why I got her. And then we also have people who take care of front of house or the script contest, because we have a script contest that has a pretty hefty first prize, a cash prize too. So we have, and then we've got our like industry series producer, Jen Pogue, who takes care of making sure the industry series runs smoothly.
What's the industry series?
We've got a really great industry series every year that we have. We have at least one master class, at least a couple of panels. We have other networking sessions. This year, our master class dealt with producing. So we had 3 amazing producers, headlined by Don Carmody. So you can't get a bigger producer in Canada, that for sure, that like Don Carmody. So he came and talked about producing and talked to the class, and for an hour and a half, he just talked to them about whatever they wanted. It was amazing. So that master class that we do, we keep the price really low, because I've seen classes like this go for like $500 and that. We charge $75, and we give a CFF festival pass, because filmmakers don't have money, especially emerging filmmakers. We try to keep the cost as low as possible, and that festival pass, we encourage them to go see every single movie. And this is important, whether you're at a festival or not. Go see as many movies as you can, whether they're independent or not, it doesn't matter, and talk to as many filmmakers as you can.
So is that a mistake that many filmmakers make when they attend the festival? Is that they don't network enough?
Some do. Some do make that mistake, and some are great at networking. But I don't see the point in having all these amazing skills if you're not going to create business contacts.
We were talking about thinking big earlier before the podcast started. So, for example, you want to potentially move away from charging large submission fees, and because we don't anyways. We keep our submission fees as low as possible, because you don't really make that much money. You just kind of try to cover some costs at the beginning. But with thinking big, it's like whether you're putting on an event or you're doing a movie. If you want to make a $10,000 movie, okay, cool. But know that it's most likely going to look like you spent $10,000, or if you're really good, it'll look like you spent $100,000. And of course, I'm generalizing here, but if it's a really good script and you've got outside feedback on how good the script was and you're confident about it, why not think bigger? Like maybe it is $1.5 million movie, and there are lots of places and people you can go to who are hungry and really want to find scripts like that. For example, who are some of the places that you can go to if you're
you can look at distributors. You can definitely look at boutique distributors who are smaller but do a lot of movies. Like for example, like if you have a good horror movie script, or even a movie, and you go to somebody like Raven Banner, for example, who are big proponents of Canadian film and definitely of genre movies, and they will help you get to the next step if they feel like that's something that would interest them. Or like A71, for example, if you have like a drama or a comedy or something like that, they may be interested in that. But don't feel scared. Approach them. Do it professionally.
Let's give the bad example and then the good example.
Yeah, a bad example is showing up to their office and script in hand and pushing it in their faces. Nobody will ever take that script, because it puts them in a legally awkward position, and you cannot send unsolicited scripts. You send a query letter and say, this is what this is all about, and then most times they'll say, okay, cool, but send it through your agent. So if you don't have an agent, then maybe you should get one, unless you want to do a $10,000 movie. But you do a $10,000 movie, you're probably not going to sell it, and if you do, you might make your money back, maybe, but what's the point? Don't you want to pay rent?
So the precursor is an agent?
Most of the times, yeah. Or a lawyer, sometimes.
Send it through your lawyer, they might ask?
Sometimes, but an agent is the best way to go. And that is because that if you go up to Don Carmody, for example, to Don Carmody Productions, his production company, and you just email them a script, that gets deleted right away. Right away. They cannot look at it. They're not allowed to. In that legal framework of where they're working, they can't look at that, because if they look at it...
They don't want to get accused of stealing ideas.
Exactly. And there are so many similar ideas, right? And some people don't get that. I remember telling a emerging filmmaker one time, he said, oh, I've got this great movie. I'm like, oh, let me guess what it's about. It's about this character who has a goal, but there's an obstacle. And then when he finally gets to his goal, he realizes that's not what he actually needed. It's just what he wanted. Instead, he got what he needed, and he was a better person for it. And he didn't get the joke. Like, the joke is that's what every movie is about. Every good movie.
Or she,
for sure. And he, or it. It can be ethereal. You never know. But it's.
Have you seen Plastic Bag?
No.
Okay. Well, I had this idea for a film for a while, which is, how do you make a film without characters? A film without a person? Well, WALL-E did something similar, but how do you make it without even the ability to emote? And then I was thinking, okay, how can you make a film just about an object?
You totally can. We had a script winner, was it last year or the year before? It's called The Log, and it was about a log.
Was it narrated?
An actual log. The script is about a piece of wood that goes on a murderous rampage. Hilarious, and it won $10,000 development.
So for films like this, do you go scouting for the majority of your films, or?
Well, this was a script.
Films?
That was a script that won that contest. But with regards to what we program and we show, we don't scout, because I feel really bad for filmmakers if they're paying a submission fee and they give a movie in for review, and then they think that, oh, they're not showing any submitted movies, they're just showing movies that they scouted. So we don't give waivers, we don't scout. Oh, I won't say we don't scout. Maybe one movie every couple of years, maybe, if it's an emergency. We'll scout.
Apparently, TIFF has 90% of the films that are shown at TIFF are not films that were submitted anonymously. That's what I heard from the CEO of TIFF.
I think Sundance, for example, I think they get 14,000 submissions. Like, I'd be really surprised. I think they have their programming team is, I think it's like 17 people. I can be totally wrong on that, but it's small. They're not all getting watched. And things that are, if Robert Redford has a movie, I mean, that's going in. If like a big name star has a movie, that's going in.
Louis C.K. called Cameron Bailey a week before TIFF actually happened, and then said, hey, I have this film, so it might go in your next year festival. And then Cameron said, why doesn't it go in this festival? And he's like, don't you have a lineup? And then Cameron's like, no, we'll find a way, we'll put it in.
Yeah, and that's not, some people think that's a bad thing. It's not. That is the business, and you have to just be okay with that's the way the business works.
But you don't want to run your business in that manner.
Well, because we can't, because the spirit of our festival is to help emerging filmmakers. Although, we will show, if James Cameron came by and he's like, hey, Bern, how about we do this? I'd be like, okay, let's do that. It would be overall good for the festival, it would be good for everybody. But generally, I want to be fair to everybody, so we only show movies that have been submitted. Not only.
It's out of a sense of fairness? There's no other reason?
We used to also scout, but now we have so many submissions that we could put on another week of the festival.
Like you said, there's about half that you feel like should go in.
There's so many good movies out there that we don't have to scout. And if these people have paid their submission fees, then they should be getting first dibs on a spot. So that's how we approach it.
Okay, so you said you work 6 months part-time, 6 months full-time, and then 2 months of the 6 months full-time is actually more than full-time.
Yeah.
What is your schedule divided up into?
It's very fluid. There's no schedule. I hate schedules. I hate forms.
Because you're an artist.
I've filled out lots of grant applications, and when I see it at first, that form, something breaks in me. I'm like, oh God, a form. But I have nobody else to turn to, so I have to do it. I do structure my weeks a little bit, but day to day, I just go at it.
How far in advance do you?
And well, by the way, that's not the right thing to do. Don't you guys do that? It's a shitty way of doing business, but yeah. Sorry.
How far in advance do you think about sponsors? Is there such a thing as being too early or too late for a sponsor?
When I'm running a festival, I've already a plan for the sponsorship deck for next year. So it's a constant thing, because we have to pay to turn the lights on and to keep them on, right? So it's constant.
All right, so when it comes to grants, you said that you applied to grants. You applied to how many grants, and how many grants did you get denied?
We've gotten denied by, 95% of our grants.
And you're not disheartened by the fact that you get denied multiple times?
Disheartened, I'm sorry. Yeah, totally. It's a terrible process to go through.
So if you've been denied once and then twice, it's okay, apply again?
Yeah.
Do you apply with pretty much the same application, or do you change it? And if you change it, what do you use as the factors that influence how you change it?
What you should do is, if you get denied, don't just rewrite it the way you think it should do. Contact that ministry or council or whatever, and ask if you can speak to somebody and ask why you got denied, right? Because you may be approaching the application in a way that they're not looking for, and then you're wasting your time. So just go to the source, ask them, and usually, and I think, I'm just looking at your list there that I gave you. Mm-hmm. I think everybody I asked, those 3 people, they were all good with giving me feedback.
Just so you know, the 3 people are...
Don't. 3 government agencies, but they all right away they said, yeah, sure, we'll talk to you about your failed grant application, and what you can do better, and it'll give you a clear understanding of the grant writing process. There are also, if you can afford it, there are people and organizations that will write your grants for you.
Okay, why don't you do that? Because you hate writing grants. How expensive?
It depends on the grant. All right, but they'll
$1,000, $2,000, $10,000?
It depends what you're going for. But the thing is, it's one of those things that even though I hate it, I still want to do it and want to learn how to do it well. So it's like it's always practice. And yeah, I've gotten denied, but in the last couple of years, Telefilm came through, which was great, and another organization came through for next year, but it was because I kept trying.
A little bit of a humble brag on your part. Can you tell people how large your organization is, just so that they know that even an organization as abundant as yours gets denied?
Okay, there'll be no humility here though, because I love our festival. It's big, it's 5 days, it's a huge industry series, it's master classes, parties. We're very well known for our parties. We also have another event that we throw during TIFF, and we throw the biggest, it's called the Canada Party. It's the biggest, coolest party at TIFF, and it's all for us, for Canadian filmmakers. And we've got a lot of people working with us, volunteers every year as well. And it's a struggle, but it's worth it. Definitely we help a lot of people, and we are slowly being able to monetize it properly to make, just to pay salaries for key people.
So you lose money on it currently, on the parties?
No, we don't lose. No, we can get more money for that 4-hour party during TIFF, that 4-hour event, than we can get for the whole festival.
And why is that? Because of the celebrities or the people who are showing up?
It's TIFF. We do like a...
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's not your festival. It's at the TIFF festival. It's a TIFF party.
At the TIFF.
Right,
it's during TIFF, we throw a party.
Oh, okay.
Right, which a lot of organizations do.
You said you can get more money from that than you would for your festival. Why? Because it's TIFF, and how would you get that money?
Because you think of it purely numbers, purely business. Let's say if you go to Coca-Cola or Pepsi or whatever, and you're like, okay, they're not one of our, neither is one of our sponsors, but if you go to a big company like that and say, here, sponsor this, and I've got, we're like this awesome little nonprofit, and we do very well on social media and all that. They're interested, but they're like, but it's not really in our budget. And I say, oh, but there's something at TIFF. And they're like, ooh, TIFF? Excuse me, what's going on right now? And then they're interested in, and it's just a name branding thing, I guess, but that's what they care about. So you have to think about, not about what you care about, because sometimes like your organization is so devoted to indie filmmakers. It's like just an amazing idea, and I know how much work you guys do. It's just great, right?
But you don't see the gun that's pointed to him off screen.
Hey, but getting money for it, right? Is like, oh, well then nobody wants to talk about how awesome I am anymore. But I bet you if you got, if like James Cameron came by and said, I'm the face now of indie film TO, and let's see if we can get, like, then all of a sudden you would be getting money, because
so
somebody who's a sponsor.
A potential strategy for us would be to host a TIFF party as a revenue source?
Maybe, if you can get, but I mean, they're expensive. They're crazy expensive.
You said that you could make more money with your TIFF party than you could with your festival. How would you make more money? Why don't you do that now already?
Sponsors.
No, but I'm saying, why don't you do that now already?
What do you mean?
You said you could make more
sponsors?
Yeah.
Because people would rather sponsor a TIFF party than a Canadian festival.
I know, but what I'm saying is that, are you not maximizing on the amount that you can make from your TIFF party already? Or do you feel like there's wiggle room there, and what you'll do for the next festival?
I can never maximize on how much I make. I would make $1 million if I could. But, I mean, there's only so much sponsorship money going around, and it depends also what you're selling, right? So for our TIFF party, for example, we roll out the red carpet for Canadian celebs, and we have a red carpet camera call, and we've got Touchwood PR is our PR company. They're amazing in film, and they make sure that like tons of awesome celebrities come out and just for a picture and to have a few drinks, and that is what sponsors like, that there is all that associated with it.
So what were you like in your first year? Because this seems so grand and ambitious.
We were just absolutely nobody. Just nobody.
And how many films did you have? How long was your festival? And then what was like the second year and third year?
The very first year was 3 days, and we had shorts and features, but it was just 3 days. Was it 2 days? No, it was 3 days, I think, at the Royal. Great theater. And parties. We had an opening, closing night party. No industry series, no contest, no nothing. Just that. We just showed some movies and threw some parties. And then every year you have to decide, you have to think about how you can grow. It doesn't matter whether you're a production company or an event company. You got to think about how you can grow and take, even if it's little steps, you can at least say you've grown every year.
And so what was it like the second year and then the third year? I want to know, how did that growth look? What did the growth trajectory look like?
Every year you think about, okay, now what can I sustainably grow into next year based on my successes or failures of this year? So like the films went over well. So we showed the same amount of films, but then we added a couple of panel discussions. All of a sudden we have an industry series, right? And then the next year we added like a couple more panel discussions, or it was a workshop, I think, I forget what. And then also an extra day of movies.
What made you come up with the idea of Canadian Film Fest?
Well, I started in 2004. So in 2004, it was extremely difficult to find any Canadian movie on the screens. And I know it still is right now, but it was even worse back then. And I just remember coming across a movie, or a couple of movies, whatever it was, in the video store. A video store is where you used to have to go to rent movies. I don't know if you know that, but it was pretty cool. But that's where the Canadian movies went right away. And I was like, I would have seen that. I remember one in particular. I forget if this was right before, I think it was. It was Ginger Snaps, and it's a werewolf movie. And it was about this girl who becomes, these two sisters who become werewolves. And they're in high school.
Did they have red hair? Were they ginger? Was it related to that?
I think one was. Yeah, no, it was Catherine Isabel. And she starts turning into a werewolf. And it was awesome. It was so good. And I was like, why? I would have seen that in the theater. And then I also found out, I didn't know it was Canadian. When I picked it up, I just wanted a good monster movie. But there's a certain familiarity with how the neighborhoods look and all that. And then I was like, okay, I got to do something. Plus, I was just getting into film, so I wanted to meet people. So I was like, well, I could go out and meet people, or I could just bring them to me. I thought, show some movies, throw some parties. How hard could that be, right?
So that was the inception of the idea for the Canadian Film Fest, was that you like this movie called Werewolves or Ginger Snaps.
Yeah.
And you want to see more of it as well. At the time, you were a filmmaker and you were thinking, I can go out to people, so I can network, I can email, or I can be the attractor.
Yeah. I mean, you do it anyway.
Check off a couple boxes.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, you want to get to a certain point.
This is important
ways.
Because filmmakers tend to think in a delimited box, where I'm a filmmaker, I'm going to make a film, and it's going to be great, and then that's how I'm going to get known. But maybe that worked in the 80s and 90s, and that's arguable that it even worked then.
That can still work, right? But there's also other ways of doing it.
Right. So your way was thinking larger, which is I want to bring people to me as well. Now, so let's say you're a film. Are you a filmmaker on your?
Yeah, like my day job's an editor. Although in the last few years, all I've really done is corporate video.
I remember you were doing a short with David Cronenberg the last time we spoke.
Yeah, that was actually the last cool thing I did.
How did that go?
Although my corporate work is fine. I won't.
What happened to that?
It went off really well. It's called Tomorrow's Shadows. Corinne Vanasse was our lead. She's in Cardinal, the TV show Cardinal. It's really cool. We got floating cars and like supercomputers that can tell your fate and keep you happy. And
okay, let's get into filmmaker mode right now.
All right.
What was the budget, if you're allowed to?
Yeah.
Give it out?
It was one of the last Bravo Facts movies, and it was.
So people know what is Bravo Facts.
Bravo Fact was this fund that is now dried up, but they gave money to aspiring filmmakers who want to make a short.
So you managed to get a grant?
Yes.
Okay.
We had to because of all the post-production that we needed. I think we got the most, like we got $50,000 for that. And that was the
Well, that's why they're dried
highest.
up, and that's why they're no longer around.
Because, yeah, we spent all the money. No, that was because that was funded by, was that funded by Bell? Yeah, it was funded by Bell, but then their mandate to give back expired, and then Bravo Fact dried up.
Okay.
Because they didn't have
Okay,
to
so
do that.
your budget was around $50K in total?
I'm pretty sure it was $50K.
Okay.
Yeah. But that includes the editor not getting paid, and the director didn't get paid, and the writer didn't get paid, and the actors
pretty much
did.
all went to post-production and actors?
There was a lot of post-production on it, yeah, because we had, like I said, floating cars and see-through fridges and holograms.
Can people see this now? Is it online?
Yeah, actually, it's online. It went over really well.
Okay, so how did you get David Cronenberg?
It's on YouTube. You ask him. Man,
Okay.
listen. I'm going to tell you. Again, this goes back to what I said before. It's all about the script, right? And why not ask? What if he says no? Okay, cool. That's what I expected.
How do you go about asking? Because
go
it's
through
not
his
as if
agent.
okay, so you email the agent with the script?
Yeah.
A query first.
Yeah, exactly. You do that, and then hopefully they have time to read it. Like we knew David Cronenberg likes acting. This was also, for him, it was 4 hours in a sound booth because we only used his voice because he was the voice of this supercomputer called God, and we just needed 4 hours of his time. And he likes, obviously, genre movies. He likes sci-fi and stuff like that. It was a very well-written script, so he liked the idea. He knew, I'm sure at that time he knew Corinne Vanasse was our lead actor. Or was he on person? Wait, I better not talk to him.
Did you offer him money through the agent, or did you just say, hey, I'm Bern Euler, I run the Canadian Film Fest?
That I forget, but I didn't produce it. I just cut it. So maybe they paid him for his time. I'm sure that was in the budget, but I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, so when you do write, where do you find your inspiration from?
Usually at a bar. At a bar. Yeah, everybody's got their own thing. For some reason, I can't write anywhere except at a bar. Like literally, I have to sit at the bar, and it has to be loud. And I don't know. Because then I go into my writer mode where you just don't want to talk to anybody, and I like ignoring people. I guess I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. At night. Yeah, it's got to be at night. And that's even since I was a kid. I was always a night person. So for me, it's a bit of that, and also a bit of just looking around at the world. And especially now, there's just so much fucked up shit going on that it's easy to. I'm like, oh, hey, that's really fucked up. Let me write a cool metaphor for that. Oh, I see demons and a terrible fate for the planet. Wait, I don't even know if I'm in metaphor mode right now, but it's like that, and then go for it. But also, you have to know what your end goal is. Like, is it TV because you want to make some money, or is it film because you don't want to make money? So
when you write, do you have an outline, or do you just kind of go impulsively and see where it goes?
Oh yeah, the first couple scripts I wrote, I just went at the script, and it was the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life. Like, writing-wise, I mean. You have to outline. Writing the script is the very, very last thing that you do. The more you outline, the more you understand what you're writing about, and it's easier to rearrange your outline as well. I know that, what was it? Superbad. It was written by Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen, and they just wrote it. And then in high school actually, and then they gave it to, after a while, they gave it to Judd Apatow, who saw the promise in it, but then he said, forget how long, but I heard Seth Rogen saying they rewrote that thing for the longest time because they didn't do any outlining. They just had a script, and that messed them up entirely. And he said that was one of the biggest lessons he ever learned is outline is king. Like, the script it's again one of those things that neophyte filmmakers do, is they rush because they want to write a script because it's fun. Like, there's this feeling you get. I still remember the first time I wrote a script and the first scene change I did, like the way it made me feel. I remember that so clearly. But I did no outlining, so that script went absolutely nowhere.
Even Seinfeld, Larry David said the hardest part is the outline. Writing the script is just, he even skipped that in Curb Your Enthusiasm. It just keeps it as the outline form. Because the script is pretty easy once you have the outline, at least to him.
Yeah, the script should be, it's like icing. You don't need that. The outline can be everything.
So when you say script, you mean the nitty-gritty of the scene descriptions and dialogue?
It can be. I mean, like, even when you're writing a script. See, and another thing is if you rush to the script, and I see this even in submissions, when you can tell that they've rushed to camera, is they've also rushed the script phase, and there's way too much dialogue. There's so much dialogue. Like, somebody will hire... No, that's actually not true, because his dialogue, it's not too much. It's motivated dialogue, and there's a difference between motivated dialogue and unmotivated dialogue.
But a filmmaker would just say, no, my dialogue needs to be there. It's just like Tarantino's.
Yeah, but they're probably wrong, and I've seen it so many times. Like Inglourious Bastards, remember that that opening scene? Or was he talking about apple strudel or
milk?
Milk with his apple, right? Milk. He's talking about milk. Okay, that does nothing for the story. The whole story is actually what's going on under the floor, and all that tension that's coming up. The milk is icing. Like, it has nothing to do with anything, but it's still motivated because it's highlighting the banality of what he's talking about is highlighting the epicness of the suspense because she's under the floor and a whole bunch of other cool little things. But Tarantino dialogue is not just dialogue. He does it for very, very specific purpose, and that's why it's so good. Whereas a lot of beginner filmmakers think that you can just write anything and like that sounds like that and that makes sense, but they're not seeing the bigger picture. So yeah.
How do you get the word out there for your film festival to get submissions?
It's all social media. Well, I guess a bit of word of mouth, but it's social media.
So you buy Facebook ads?
I buy Facebook ads, and we do a lot of like actual social media-ing ourselves.
For example?
Like just general announcements on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that. But Facebook ads is pretty good because you can very specifically target your demographic. Like, you can really drill into there and hit all the filmmakers.
Do you have a mission statement for Canadian Film Fest?
We do. Please don't ask me to say it.
Is it embarrassing?
No, it's great. It's important to have a mission statement because it can keep you on track. And if you come up with a good, solid mission statement, then you and your organization will always know what you're about. And ours is simply, I'm probably forget a couple of words, but it's just we're dedicated to showcasing Canadian filmmaking talent by showing films and offering up educational networking opportunities for our filmmakers.
And that's important when you're outreaching to sponsors to have the mission statement, or
not really?
They don't ask for the mission statement?
No. But as an organization, it will help you focus.
What about as a filmmaker? Should you, as a filmmaker, a director, or a writer, should you have a mission statement?
Yeah, definitely. It's called a log line. That log line is the very, very first thing you should write. And I learned that very late in the game, but when I did, it helped me focus. It really, if you've ever read Save the Cat, I think in that book he goes into how important it is. And it's true. You have that log line, a very succinct 2 lines, let's say, idea of what your script is about. You will never veer off from that. You will always know what your end goal is and stay on track. And it's very, very important.
Okay. Question written down here is, how do you plan for rewards and prizes? Is it audience determined or by committee?
I'll tell you, I don't think that's very important. Actually, I don't think it's important at all. It's a nice little bonus.
You mean for a festival?
For a festival, I mean, if I could, I would offer $1 million first prize for sure. But that kind of money doesn't exist in Canada. It's hard to come by. And why would a filmmaker? Filmmakers aren't. It's not important. What's going to help their career. That's how I look at it. So the kind of prizes I try to involve are things like I get distributors out, and even before.
How do you get those distributors to come?
Just ask them, because they're looking for movies. Distributors, it's literally what they do. They want to know. So even before the festival even happens, when I know I've got my lineup, I'm already calling distributors that I'm friends with. I'm like, hey, Raven Band or A71 or whoever. I'm like, I've got this movie. I know this is something you'd be interested in. Take a look. And they're so thankful. They've got a heads up, and they can see it first, which they love, and maybe they'll pick it up. And that's what we try to do. Try to facilitate for our filmmakers at our festival is to help get them their movies sold. Because
do you have anything you want to announce to our audience, like your submission dates that are opening, or
well, generally we do submissions in the fall. So
you're talking directly to the audience now.
Well, I don't have any dates yet, but it'll be in September, October-ish of every year that we do our call out for submissions, and it usually goes till right before Christmas time.
Anything else you'd like to promote? Facebook, Twitter?
No, not really. I think we got it all.
All right, man. Thank you.
Always
appreciate
a pleasure.
it. Okay.
Oh yeah, let's do one more question.
Okay.
Do you have a way that you go through, or you just randomly select sponsors?
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
I guess it's how do we approach sponsors, basically, right? Okay, I'll answer it. Let me know if I'm leaving anything out that you want. I think the best way to do it, if you're hunting for sponsors, is to look for other organizations. If you're a new organization, you look for other organizations that do sort of what you do, and ask or get a hold of their sponsorship deck. Take a look at how they did it. And you know what it boils down to at the end of the day? It's a PowerPoint presentation of who you are, what you do, and what you offer for different sponsorship amounts. And lots of pictures. As little text as possible and lots of pictures to show the spirit of whatever it is that you're selling. And then that's how you go about it.
Is it usually like last year's pictures? Would you think
I always update them, yeah.
Sorry?
I always update them. Like every time, and I look at it this way, every event that I put on is a photo op for pictures for the sponsorship deck. I literally have that thought. I tell my staff, I'm like, remember, now we're about to start the festival. Take a bunch of great pictures. Well, we have a photographer, but I'm like, you guide him or her as well and make sure that we get these pictures for the sponsorship deck. That's why we're taking pictures. Sure, we put them up online so people can look at them and tag themselves, but what does that do for us? Nothing, almost nothing. But to sell a sponsorship, that's what you always have to be thinking is, where's your revenue coming from? How do I get money? There's nothing wrong with that. It's not anti-Canadian to want to make money. You can even want to make a lot of money. I'll still call you Canadian. I am.
And do you think
right?
having your lineup, all your films ready and all your guests coming, do you think that gives you an edge?
But I don't.
No?
But we have our lineup done we announce it in February. And we have it done in February. By that time, it's usually too late to get sponsors.
Okay.
And that's a month out from your festival, or 2 months out?
So again, that's what because our festival is in March. But again, that's what you're doing with the pictures, right? You're like, oh look, last year we had this person, and this person had their film in, and here's a picture of Jeremy Benning, for example, who had a film and he was on a panel. He's a cinematographer of The Expanse and a bunch of other stuff. The guy's incredibly talented, and I threw in some pictures of him. Or Jean-Marc Vallée was our surprise DJ at one of our TIFF events, and Denis Villeneuve was at our party just in September. So I got a picture of me. Hey, yeah, this is my buddy. I just met the poor guy. He's being nice, but he's like letting me have a picture and he knows too, I'm using it to promote the festival and get sponsors so that, you know, people can see, oh, these are the people that are coming out. All right, I want to be involved. I want to help out.
Okay, so Photoshop yourself with celebrities.
Use Photoshop as much as you can.
Okay, any other questions?
So when you're working on like stories, do you work on like one at a time?
Like personally, as a writer, when I'm working on stories, how many projects do I have on the go at the same time? Okay, this goes for whether you're a writer or event producer or owner of a cool company like yours. Is you gotta have like a dozen pokers in the fire, and hopefully one of them starts glowing at any given time. Like because I do this, I'm editing as a day job. Like I'm shooting a corporate gig on Sunday. I've got this other company that has nothing to do with film, but I'm throwing a service out to the entertainment industry. I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I'm doing. You just have to keep, you can't just write one thing and expect to make a living off of one thing.
And then, like you said, you do like multiple, like when you're writing, which one do you decide, like, I don't know, do you just whichever?
You know what, you just keep writing as many different stories as you can, and learn how to write about your stories in a business way so that you can approach somebody. Like, let's say last year, I mean, I have this TV show I have in development. I had a lot of it written, episodes already written, and all this, but it doesn't matter because I had a one sheet. I had one piece of paper that had the general outline of the thing. So at the festival, I said to him, he's a friend of mine, but I said, hey, I've got this TV show. You want to take a look at it? And I gave him one piece of paper. And then he came back to me an hour later. He's like, oh, this is great. Let's do this. Let's get this on board. I'm like, cool. Well, I was thinking getting this other producer on board too. He's like, yeah. Let's do this. Let's all work together because of that one piece of paper. It doesn't matter all that other stuff that I wrote, but in a business context, you have to be able to very briefly summarize your project to be able to sell it, because the producer is not going to read like 9 episodes of a TV show and then decide whether he wants to come on board at the very first part of it. He's like, whoa, just give me the concept. Okay, cool. Yes, this is totally sellable. Because also, like if we go to a streaming agent, which we're going to do soon, they're going to want to. They're not going to say, okay, wait, before you do anything, let me read 9 episodes. They're not going to do that. Give me succinctly put what does your project look like? So educate yourselves on how to approach producers or distributors and what they're looking for, and have that at the ready, because you don't have to be ready. Because in my case, I rewrote a feature-length movie into a 9-episode streamable, TV show. None of those are written, except for half of the pilot. But none of those are actually written, but it's all outlined, episode by episode. I've got a Bible now. That one sheet then turned into, how long is it? I think it's like it's only like 7 or 8 pages, I think, like that. But character breakdowns, synopses of each
Character?
episode, and also people I would see in those certain roles to kind of like flesh it out a little bit, and it's easy to read. It's if you want to read about the character, it's cool. If you want to just flip over to the episodes, cool, and that makes it sellable. So
when you were talking about making your film, writing your film from a business point, you don't just mean simply make a one sheet. You mean, what else do you mean?
You can't make a one sheet until you've actually outlined your movie and like really thought about it, or TV show or whatever. And everybody does it differently. Like there's no one right way to do it. First thing, log line. The very, 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 very first thing. A good log line though. A good log line. And then you want like a 1-paragraph synopsis of the project, and then a very small character breakdown, and that's probably going to be your whole one sheet. Right. But you can sell something on that. It depends on how good the idea is and who you're approaching, obviously, and it's never a slam dunk. But that's what you can do. And then if you have that, while you're writing, you can go and sell it and try and get somebody on board, because you might be able to get development money. If you have the project written out succinctly in a 1-page, maybe somebody's going to be like, yeah, we'll hop on board with that. So, like that's that business part of the art.
Are there any other quick business tips for filmmakers that you have at the forefront of your mind?
Be nice to people, man. I've like bumped into some assholes, and I would never, ever, ever work with them, and word gets around who you are and how you act with people. So yeah, be cool.
All right, man. Thank you again.
No
Appreciate it. That's it for the questions.
No. Yeah.
When you're writing or forming an outline, do you have an audience in mind, or is this just for yourself initially?
Well, you're the first audience, so just write what you like. And Ricky Gervais says that very well, actually. He's like, no, I write what I think is funny, and hopefully other people think it's funny. Like, that's all you can do. You can't, I've had...
But at the same time, you just said make your films business. You have to think of your film from a business perspective.
Oh, but I don't mean write for a particular audience. I'm just saying when you present it in a way that people who are more business-minded.
So you don't modify your script? You don't modify your script to make it more sellable, quote unquote?
No, because nobody knows what that is. Nobody knows what that is. I mean, if you're at a writer's table and then you've got some producers and directors saying that you should write this episode, rewrite that episode, fine. That's a different part of it. But at the beginning, just write what makes you happy, and that way it'll be true to, who you are, not just because I've had a few Tarantino wannabes send their movies into us, but they're not writing for themselves, right? They're writing because they think people want to watch a Tarantino movie. So then they write that and they try and film it, and it's horrible, right? But if you write what is passionate for yourself, that always shows, even if it's a little rough, right? So always just do what makes you happy.
I think the podcast should just end on always do what makes you happy. It's a positive note. He's a positive guy. That's it. No more questions.